let's talk about the difference between metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. So for our first example, we have metals. This is a piece of aluminum. So let's talk about some of the properties of these metals. They are located to the left of the zigzag line on our periodic table. Metals tend to have what's called a metallic or shiny luster. You see how it's reflecting light. Additionally, metals tend to be solid. Now let's look at what's called malleability. Metals are malleable, meaning I could take a hammer to this and it would flatten out without breaking. Another way we looked at this in 6th grade is they're flexible. They don't break when I try to move them or bend them. And finally, metals also have the ability to conduct electricity. So you have your conductivity meter and you see how it is lighting up. That indicates that it is conducting electricity. To the right of the zigzag line, we have our nonmetals. Our example here is sulfur. Now, sulfur is a solid, but nonmetals can be a solid, liquid, or a gas. So if we look at sulfur, you notice it's not really reflecting light. Nonmetals tend to have a dull or non-metallic luster. They do not reflect light. In addition to that, they are not good conductors. You see, I'm trying to light it up and nothing is happening, so it is not conducting electricity. In addition to that, if we look at the actual sample, think about if I took a hammer to this. Would it flatten out? No. Nonmetals are what we call brittle. So again, if I take it, I can break off pieces of it. Right? So they are brittle. Now, let's talk about those little ones in the middle, the metalloids. Metalloids are confused elements. They don't really have all the properties of metal, and they don't really have all the properties of a nonmetal. They actually have a combination of properties. So on our periodic table, they are actually sitting on the zigzag line, with the exception of aluminum. So our metalloids are boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, and tellurium. So let's look at a particular metalloid. This one is silicon. So you notice silicon. Silicon is reflecting light, so it has a shiny luster, which we would think is a metal. But if I take a hammer to this, it actually ends up like this in a lot of little pieces. So it's brittle like a nonmetal. As far as conductivity, we say that metalloids, it's kind of hard to see, but it kind of lights up a little bit. They're called semiconductors. They can conduct, but they don't have the strength of conductivity of a metal. So let's recap some of those key words. So for metals, okay, these are on the left, okay, of the zigzag line. They have a shiny luster. They are good conductors. And they are malleable. Now, another word we didn't discuss here is ductile, and that just means they can stretch into a wire, and I don't have any samples that I could show you of that. Then we have our nonmetals, which are located to the right of the zigzag line. They have a dull luster. They are poor conductors. And they are brittle. And then we have our metalloids, the poor little confused guys in the middle. So they are on the zigzag line. They have properties of both metals and nonmetals. If you can remember these properties, you should be able to identify unknown elements as either a metal, a nonmetal, or a metalloid.